So today we're going to talk about the 9 classy behaviors men always notice and find wildly attractive in women or in a woman. And let me just say this, these are those men who are emotionally grown up. So let me be clear, this isn't for those dysfunctional type of men. This isn't for those clinical men who have clinical issues. This is for those emotionally grown up men. Now, before we get into this, I think it's really important to address the elephant in the room. And that is dating in our current environment can keep a person disillusioned, frustrated, or worse, giving up hope. And I was actually giving up hope of finding a suitable partner, that believing that a suitable partner exists. So I'm going to read to you a blog I wrote that will illustrate this. And then we're going to dive into these, excuse me, classy behaviors. I said, dating in our current environment can leave a person disillusioned, frustrated, or worse, giving up hope that a suitable partner exists. The minute we connect with another human being, we make ourselves vulnerable to misalignment, which is just really a nice way of saying we're not a fit for each other. After many encounters that go nowhere, one can look back and say, there's no one for me. Now, one can listen to those rah-rah coaches that will tell you that, all you have to do is love yourself. And let me be honest here, I've said that myself. But the reality is loving oneself is rather hard to do. The fact is, dating is very vulnerable. Let me reframe that. Dating is a very vulnerable act. And given we are swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality, excuse me, in the dating marketplace, it's no wonder many prefer choosing not to engage in the process. Genuinely connecting with another human being at a heart-centered level is no small feat. And anyone who suggests finding a life mate is effortless has some swampland to sell you as well, because it takes a lot of courage to put oneself out there. And more importantly, loving oneself through all the disappointments, loving oneself through all the disappointments. So this was on my Instagram and my Facebook post today, and it goes with the following meme. Dating today is like the Hunger Games. It's challenging, brutal, and a fight to the death of our dreams and our hopes. Preparing oneself through personal development, self-help, and spiritual work can put the odds forever in your favor by working on yourself. Just saying. That's my meme I posted today. So, loving oneself, self-love. There's an interesting book called, look at this cover. Love yourself like your life depends on it. This is only 59 pages. And it's all double spaced. Look at that. A lot of white space, okay? Love yourself like your life depends upon it. I cannot even figure out how to pronounce this person's name. Why does this relate to classy behaviors? Ladies, I've observed most women abandon their sovereignty and give their power away to men. They give their power away to men. And let me tell you something, to that wounded man, to that man who's got clinical issues, that sociopath, that narcissist, they are highly attracted to women who don't actually feel good about themselves. This is why I'm such a big proponent of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. Not because this work is going to attract a life mate in you. What it's going to do is, most importantly, hopefully own your sovereignty. Because as I said before, women oftentimes give their power away to men. And I think this is almost conditioning way back to cave people days, 200,000 years ago, where women were more dependent upon men for their survival. And today, most women are fully capable of financially taking care of themselves, at least here in the United States for the most part, that you are not dependent upon men for your sovereignty. But Jonathan, men are supposed to be the provider, protectors. They're supposed to do all that work. And all I'm supposed to do is be the nurturer and submit to him. Folks, you can adopt that. You can adopt that traditional role, that traditional model. You have a 1 in 50, you have a 1 out of 2 chance that that relationship's going to be that relationship will end and you are on your own. And if you're in your second or third marriage, you have a 65 to 75% chance of it ending. So let me be clear. Dependency on anyone or anything will directly affect your emotional well-being. So coming back to this post I'm sharing about dating, it is challenging to navigate the emotions of engaging with another human being, being vulnerable, as if just even writing an email to someone or a text message to someone can be a very vulnerable act. And I will tell you, there are coaches out there that will trivialize this. There are those motivational and empowerment coaches that can tell you you can push through anything through willpower. You know, a simple text message can be an incredibly vulnerable thing. And the fact is many people, this pushing through it through willpower is actually emotionally devastating. I can't tell you how many times even a miscommunication on a text message with someone caused me to recoil, to go the other direction, to not want to communicate with them. Because the reality is we weren't meant to meet through these environments. We were meant to meet face to face and get a full flavor of a person. And yet this is the medium that we are so accustomed to, and it isn't going to change. You know, I wish I could tell you, just go do what you love. Just go do what you love. Go do things like painting. Go do an art class. Go to a meetup group and you'll meet your soulmate there. Look, I get this happens for people. It does. It's like a broken clock. It happens twice a day, but the reality is it's rarely happening organically. The only way you're going to shift that organically is if you are in an environment where everybody is single and they're interacting with one another. In fact, I'll be hosting a live event at the end of March, and I'm going to start curating singles events. So people, with men and women alike, 50 men, 50 women, at least there's a better chance when you're in a pool of people, instead of just randomly hoping you meet someone at the grocery store. And you're probably going, what the heck does this have to do with this topic? It's because I think we have to recognize that it isn't about finding the right guy. If you're a woman, and it's not about finding the right, gal, if you're a man. This is about finding the relationship within yourself. So these 9 classy behaviors aren't going to be simple things like, brush your teeth or wear nice clothes. We're going to go deeper into the emotional attributes that are actually attractive to that emotionally grown-up man. Okay? And I'm hoping, raise your hand, say John, or hit that like button if you say, Jonathan, I want an emotionally grown-up man, or write that in the chat box. Okay. Okay. So these are the behaviors that are classy for both men and women alike, that both emotionally grown-up men and emotionally grown-up women appreciate in the gender that they're going after. Okay. So the first one, this is simple: actions matching words. In our current dating environment, it saddens me how trivial we treat people, how dismissive we treat people, particularly when it comes to our actions and our words. Whether you're a man or woman, this is commensurate no matter what gender is out in the dating marketplace. We see human beings who say one thing and they do another, because the truth is we trivialize people. I say I'm sure you don't think you do, but I'm sure there have been times, I know I've done it. I've been dismissive. I've trivialized, because when they're a total stranger, you have nothing invested in them. See, our actions matching words has more value when we have something to gain or something to lose. And I'm here to invite everyone to operate from a place of integrity, or at least do your best to operate in integrity. And I get, as I started this broadcast by saying, look, we can feel disillusioned. We can feel frustrated. It can be brutal. It can be the Hunger Games out there. All I'm offering you is putting the odds more in your favor. So actions consistently matching words. I'm sure you would agree with that. Number two, be generous and kind. You know, believe it or not, I'm going to tell you as a man, I've gone on what feels like thousands of dates, and that's not the actual number, but it just feels that way. Can anyone relate to that? It feels like you've met a lot of different people. I can tell you there have been a lot of times where women have been rather selfish, and it doesn't sit well with me. And I'm sure you've experienced men who have been selfish. Being generous and kind. See, I think the reason why early dating we are not seeing this is because everybody's defensive. They've got their walls up. They're trying to protect themselves. And what's happening is the minute you have a wall up, you have lost your capacity. Okay, you have a propensity, let me put it that way, to be less generous and kind because there's a wall up. I'm here to offer that you operate from a place of generous and kindness with no walls up in the early stages of dating. And if you have a wall up, then go tear that wall down and then revisit dating when that, tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev. Hey, has anyone seen the movie Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron? It is, anyways, it's about the fall of the Berlin Wall. But that's what we need to do. We have to drop our walls, because without it, we won't, as much as we think we're generous and kind, the wall is blocking what's innately already inside of most of you. So generous and kind. Number three, they communicate clearly without being right. You, or ladies and men, they communicate clearly without being right. You know, we are rather selfish and righteous here in the United States. I can't speak for other parts of the world, but there's this almost belief that we're almost at a war with the opposite sex. I'm right and you're wrong. I see this habitually. Ladies, I'm going to suggest to you, there are always two sides to a story, particularly in a relationship. And believe it or not, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So learning to communicate clearly without being right. Now, I'm not suggesting I'm right here. I'm just offering perspective. You make up the choice. Okay? But at the same time, I think a classy behavior that quality or emotionally grown up men notice and appreciate is a woman that can communicate clearly without being right. Number four, they don't use people. They are clear about commitment. I think this is where I've seen this with a lot of men and women as well. They are not clear about right up front the standard they're looking for. And I know a lot of women that use men for a free meal. You know, let me just tell you something, ladies. This is not cool. This is not cool. From somewhere I read in the younger generation, 30% of women who are actively dating are just doing it for a free meal. That's using someone. You know, that's a perfect example of using someone. And even if you're not, I actually spoke to another woman. This is another example. She says, I'm not ready to be in a relationship, but I'm just going out to have a good time. Usually, and she says, the men always pay. And I'm like, wait a minute, you clearly know you're not ready for a relationship. You pretend to be ready for a relationship, but you clearly know it. But in the back of your mind, you go, well, I can always change my mind. But if you go in with that kind of intent, you will use people. And I'm going to tell you, that's a classless act. And I've seen so many women do this, and I see men do this. I remember early after my divorce, I was a train wreck, but I thought I was ready for a relationship. And then the times I knew I wasn't ready for a relationship, I wasn't dating. In fact, quite frankly, many of you know I have a significant relationship that ended 7 months ago. I have not gone on one date. I'm still processing. I'm still grieving. I've got myself my toes in the water and I hold space that I will connect with someone, but I really have only communicated with one person, and it's only because they recognize me professionally. Anyway, okay, number 5, they have their act together emotionally, physically, spiritually. They have their act together, particularly when I say emotionally and physically. They don't need drugs or alcohol to get through the day. Do you know there's a lot of people that use drugs and alcohol throughout the day just to get by through the day? Because emotionally, and they actually, dating is is kind of a self-medication for people. Just that brief encounter, that brief interaction with another human being causes many people to put themselves out in the dating marketplace. Well, let me tell you something. One of the most classy behaviors and things men find very attractive is a woman who has her act together emotionally, physically, spiritually in her life. Okay? She's not in constant chaos. By the way, ladies, you can't stand men who are in constant chaos. There is nothing attractive about a person that's going through a lot of emotional upheaval in their life or physical upheaval. For example, a divorce. A divorce is an incredibly traumatic experience. Dealing with a contentious ex-spouse. You know, if that's what you're dealing with, it's going to make it very problem. By the way, guys are not attracted to women who have contentious ex-spouses. You ladies will be, well, let me reframe that. Emotionally grown-up men and emotionally grown-up women are not attracted to somebody who has a contentious relationship with an ex-spouse. An emotionally dysfunctional person will look past that and go, well, you know, I see the potential, so let me hang my hat on this person. But you know that phrase, you know, you're buying the cow, you're not just buying the cow, you're buying the farm, you're buying the manure, you're buying everything else associated with it. If you're choosing somebody who doesn't have their act together. Number 7. They are introspective and work on themselves to grow beyond their limitations, wounds, and traumas. I'm going to repeat that. They are introspective and work on themselves to grow beyond their limitations, wounds, and traumas. Folks, if you follow my channel, you know I'm a big proponent of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. It's why I wrote a book called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? And I continually promote book after book. One particular book is called The Hoffman Process. The Hoffman Process. This is a deep dive into healing childhood wounds and adult traumas. An introspective person is aware that they are aware that they can be triggered, they can get defensive, they can judge, and they look inward and always go and ask and say to themselves, I'm the common denominator here. And so an introspective person wants to grow past their negative patterns, their limiting beliefs in their life, to grow past their limitations, their wounds and traumas. And by the way, a trauma or wound doesn't have to be like an abusive parent or physically abusive or emotionally abusive. You could have had a minor trauma that could have ripple effects in your life. And so something that's a really classy behavior is that person that's working on themselves, whether it's a man or woman. Okay. I think this is a classy behavior, a woman who's a nurturer, protective, and empathetic. A nurturer, protective, and empathetic. Now, for the woman who seeks the man, he's a protector, he's a nurturer, and empathetic. I think protection and nurturing go hand in hand. When you're with a partner who, you know, being protective of them is a very classy thing to do. Being a nurturer for them, I don't care if you're a man or woman, it's the capacity to do both. But being empathetic isn't just about the capacity to feel someone's feelings. It's the capacity to genuinely care about someone's feelings. So being protective, nurturing, and empathetic. And last but not least, number 9. They believe demonstrating trust is paramount in their life. And trust isn't just in relationship about fidelity. Trust is, I have this other person's best interest at hand. There is nothing classier than actually having someone else's best interest without compromising yourself. You do not, this is not about compromising yourself, having someone's best interest. But I'm going to tell you, we build trust through caring about another person's best interest. And these are the 9 classy behaviors men and women notice and find wildly attractive. And I'm talking about that emotional grown-up person and not that person who's dysfunctional or have clinical issues. Folks, I recognize we are in a difficult dating environment. If you need some support, do you see this link right here to schedule a discovery call with me? There's links below. I invite you to schedule a call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. My whole area of expertise is to talk about discernment, which will amplify your intuition so you can recognize those people who's on the same page with you much sooner rather than later. And as I said earlier, it's the Hunger Games out there, and my job is to forever put the odds in your favor. Bada bump bump. Hey, if you found value in this conversation, post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. As always, if you cared for this video, please hit the like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. And if you want to connect with me directly, check out those links below to schedule a discovery call with me, to find my group called Midlife Love Mastery, to find me on Instagram, to get the books I recommend as well.